Yes, what I was astonished to discover was it's quite possible to make the same kind of oil as he has in his syringe here, um, simply by using this and creating a stain on the side of the bottle. Um, the interesting thing is also that the oil I discovered, is actually stronger than the hash. I mean, for some reason, it seems to distill it and make it stronger, which then suggests very clearly that if we hold the bottle to our lips and place the tongs to thine lips, as it says in the Bible, um, inhale the smoke into the lungs and then straight back out through the nose, that will deposit a layer of cannabis oil inside the sinus cavity, which is what this whole business is about. Um, Quite literally, in the same way that Rick Simpson reversed his sinus cancer, his skin cancer using this oil. I mean, that was a very easy job, wasn't it? He just put the oil on his finger and wiped it on his face. But let's say, that the cancer appeared inside his nose instead of outside. How would he get that oil inside his nose? Well, the answer is, I'll be honest, I tried and it doesn't work. You can't just put this oil up your nose. It doesn't work. I tried several times and it literally just does not work. It literally, all it did is made my eyes water and no positive effect whatsoever. So that's when I had to, turn around and look to other things, and that's when I realised that, lo and behold, isn't that extraordinary? You can literally, leave a coating of cannabis oil on the inside of this glass bottle, which anyone can come along and test and verify. And I, do strongly suggest that somebody takes a sample, does this, sends it to a lab, and gets a scientist to look at it, because he can come back with a lab report of it and verify that yes, that is a high-grade medical cannabis oil. Which very clearly, could have been used in ancient times to reverse sinus cancer. Just as simple as that. All we have to do is that little experiment and send it to a lab, and take that to a court of law, and job done. It's the then we can prove, very easily that whoever inhaled this and breathed it out again was able to literally paint a layer of cannabis oil inside their sinus cavity, and then reverse any potential tumour or actual tumour growing inside the cavity relatively easily, simply by getting rid of this negative pressure, getting rid of the toxins, purifying the substance. And what we're dealing with here, I believe, is a form of vaporizer. Why this works as well as it does, quite simply, is because this is vaporizing the hashish, and the effect of that means that it condenses, the smoke then condenses onto the glass, the cold glass, just as it does our sinus lining, as a very pure high-grade cannabis oil, simply because it has been vaporized. And it's it's a vaporization process that many people maybe don't realize is happening here. And therefore also explains, how it condenses on the lining of the sinus cavity like so, providing a constant protection. I mean, obviously that coating of cannabis oil would last for maybe 24 hours or longer before it fell away. So you've got a very durable medicinal coating of cannabis, which, literally behaves as a extraordinary defense, not just to sinus cancer, but can also, I believe, reverse some sinus cancers in quite a late stage, which would then explain, how this chap, was in such a terrible state, with his face maybe bulging out, he very possibly, was in this kind of, condition, one side of his face bulging out in a terrible state, or like this, or like this, or like me. And all of a sudden, this chap, with his angel wings, puts him back to normal. Bloody amazing, all done with this trick, and this very simple, use of the tong to vaporize hashish. And of course, the problem now is that, or the possibility now is that people get hold of the tongs, they just get hold of these tongs and start misusing them. Because I believe they can be certainly used for harm, but certainly a lot less good if we just use them wrong. And I mean quite simply by breathing the smoke. I mean, just breathe the smoke in through the mouth, and instead of out through the nose, you breathe the smoke out through the mouth. And that, I believe, could have some negative consequences, and I do have evidence of negative consequences that can create. So I strongly suggest that yes, there is potential for any old tricks and any old ingenious pieces of equipment to be misused, by modern arrogant opportunists. But nevertheless, the opportunity is there to find out how it was originally used, how people got the best effect of it, how people got the most from the most medicinal plant on earth. And let's see, yes, the list of benefits now, this is the bit I'm getting to, is absolutely gigantic. Break the sucking habit, and all the madness that goes with it, all the manipulation, intimidation, and terrorism. Reduce. This is arguably also part and parcel of a form of enlightenment. As was just mentioned, in that Bible quote. Woe is me, I was undone, but all my iniquity was taken away, and my sins were purged. To suggest that I was no longer under the thumb of this intimidation. I am now set free. I am now enlightened, living in the light instead of the dark. I'm no longer a sucker, for this ridiculous scam. Boom. So yeah, reduce smoking by 90%. Fantastic, or 100% if you like. That's what it literally does break the addiction. Anything that doesn't work, as we said earlier on in the video, anything that's partially effective gives way to addiction. And as soon as something's effective, bam, we don't need it anymore. It turned out that the only reason that it was addictive is because it didn't work properly. How bloody infuriating. So, well, once we've cracked it, bam, 90% of your smoking gone, or 100%, because literally you can take it or leave it. Reduce your expenditure by a similar amount. Reduce your toxic intake by, probably more than 90%. Quite simply because, you're smoking 90% less, and the bit you are smoking has now got a lot less contaminants in it, and hydrocarbons. So you can pop that up to 99%, less toxic intake. That will save you 90% of your health straight away in a single instant, literally by switching to the tong. And the other benefit, of course, is that we allow all the other benefits of the other treatments, that I mentioned in the first video, a chance to work all of a sudden. Removing the ball and chain and all that business that I was talking about in the first video. And if we put a big line under this, if we imagine this as a big mathematical sum for a moment, what we have managed to do is get rid of 90% of crime. Literally 90% of crime gone. Because what I'm suggesting here is, with this artificial inflation and this artificial event, what we have done is artificially inflated terrorism by 90% and crime. Literally a gigantic crime wave following in the wake of all this business, of course. Once all the knowledge was gone, and nobody knew what to do, and it was just a free-for-all, then yes, with people just suddenly, you've got this scam, suddenly up and running, and people just getting horrifically mutilated. It's just a recipe for disaster. Now, as I say, that then raises the question, well, 90% of crime gone, well, that's a lot of jobs gone, because what we're let's have a quick look at, all the jobs in the payroll here now of this scam. Because if we see this as a pyramid, of the people like on the payroll here, which I think is quite apt. People at the top, obviously, the cancer charities, making most from this ridiculous scam. The people underneath, we've got the doctors and nurses, and working for the cancer charities. Then we have the drug companies, of course, and all the people working for them. And then we have the mental health support workers and police at the bottom, who are frantically rushing around, and of course dentists as well, who also benefit, from the removal of all these sensible treatments, and oil pulling, etc. So there's a colossal amount of professions and corporations that, yes, a number of people and businesses, corporations on the payroll of this scam is absolutely colossal and cannot be underestimated. And of course, yes, the police and mental health support workers, social workers, etc., or at the bottom of the pyramid, given the task of running around the outskirts of this ridiculous circus to mop up all the fallout, without being told, of course, that the whole thing is the biggest crime on planet Earth. Was a crime right from the get-go. 2,000 years ago, which is astonishing, really, that, police, mental health support workers, literally they have been given the task of managing this awful crime. Well, that, needs to be addressed urgently, I believe, because this is, what started off as just terrorising individuals, and if smokers has now ended up literally terrorising the whole entire planet with this insane anti-life worship and anti-Christ terrorism. That, as I say, seems to have swallowed up the whole earth at the moment. And the other reason that this scam needs to be closed down, apart from the fact that, yes, we're all just being terrorised, is it has provided the inspiration, I believe, for making a virus. Because, as I touched upon earlier, this getting rid of the cure for sinus cancer, if we crucify the angel here, we crucify Christ, leave the disease literally just to do maximum damage and eat up this man's face, then effectively what we have done is take the dog off the lead. We have a terrifying illness like a pit bull or a Rottweiler, and as I say, if you have a solution for it, like some clever chap like Jesus who can come along, and pop this dog on a lead and stop it from doing, this awful damage that, that we see here, then that's all well and good. But as soon as, of course, you've crucified Christ, what you've effectively done is taken the dog off the lead and created a man-made bioweapon that is now, unleashed and free to create this, awful facial distortions, which can get a lot worse than this, I hasten to add. And this is the original bioweapon, and gave the people managing this scam all the inspiration, I believe, for making a virus. And it's quite understandable, really, after 2,000 years of this bullshit, that they should start exploiting and experimenting other options, such as making a virus as, like COVID-19. And I suggest it's therefore no coincidence at all that this has just suddenly popped out as, this scam has all of a sudden, got rumbled. Now, yes, all the inspiration is there. As I've just said, 2,000 years practice terrorising people with smoking-related illnesses was the perfect inspiration. Now the whole world is in the grip of this tyranny, isolated, terrorised, too scared to go outside without a face mask. Literally, this is the way the world is going, literally, as I am narrating this video, again from an artificially created event. This... make a virus, keep the cure for themselves, and you can be sure that they have the cure, that they're taking colloidal silver or something similar, and they then use the virus to, terrorise the world and make as much money as they like, and look forward to world domination. So, yes, artificially created from start to finish. Quite simply, this COVID-19, yes, artificial event that very clearly, could be connected to this event, and turning sinus cancer into a man-made bioweapon. Clearly indicating, yes, that the root of this problem goes back 2,000 years. We have to, yes, pull this plant out by the root, quite literally. I think if we don't tackle this deeper part of the problem, then it will continue to grow branches. If we just pull off the branches in the form of just tackling this, this virus and we don't keep an eye on this, then yes, it could create much more problems later on. And as I say, the suggestion here is very clear, that we just get rid of the whole goddamn thing, from start to finish. Just label it an artificially created event, and make sure that nothing of this nature happens again in future. Now, interesting things here, just before I finish, is that, sad observations are that, obviously a lot of people again set to the task of running this scam. A lot of the businesses, charities, corporations, etc., and all the employees put to the task of running this scam and exploiting the people, who, pay for the charities, etc., and the privilege of it, also fall a victim to it themselves, which is, something that they may not even realise. But that raises the question, well, how do we start in closing down this scam? Where do we start? I think a good place to start would be my suggestion is to stop locking up these people who have been miseducated, led astray, literally just kept in the dark with this, just ridiculous nonsense. And, what I'm suggesting is, yes, society has to take a proportion of the blame here. Instead of just pointing the finger at the victim, let's start taking some responsibility for the education we provide them, and stop locking up victims of this medical terrorism, sinus cancer patients, etc., etc. And of course, yes, if this guy develops sinus cancer, you can rest assured he will become, like I have, the victim of some very fierce legal manipulation. Now, yes, this, very clearly, this sinus cancer terrorises the patient enough. If you're having your face blown into distorted shapes, I can assure you that's terrorism enough, without adding to it, without arresting him and throwing him in jail. This is practically what happened to me. So, start going after the organisers of the scam is what I am saying. Let's take our attention away from from the peasants and the slaves, and start focusing our attention on the people running this scam. The corporations, the cancer charities, who are aware of what's going on. The cancer charities know that, there must be people at the top who are aware that they are beating people to death on a routine basis in order to keep it running. There must be. We know that. And we know there are people at the top who know that they are, beating people to death on a regular basis, who dare to, expose cures and treatments. And, we can't tolerate this anymore. We're not living in a, draconian, backward society. I hope, or, wish to create something like that for our future. So, yes, what I suggest is that we go after the people who maintain this awful scam, because they are seeking to expand upon it. They are also seeking to expand the serial murderer, to maintain, the expansion of the scam. And we start going out after the likes of Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates, and the real big money criminals, mafiosi, drug cartel gangsters, big pharma employees, or managers, rather, managing directors who are clearly responsible, for the current maintenance of this scam. And I think, yes, as I say, I think this should be a call to arms. If any of you out there have any similar stories, any advice you would like to offer me, if you would like to forward me any evidence, or of any other patients, or you can suggest ways that the global population can get together and provide some kind of resistance to this dreadful movement, because I think, yes, the time is ripe, the time is now. We have this Black Lives Matter protest, going on outside the window as I'm narrating this. There isn't a strong objection to slavery happening, within our communities all over the world. And I think now is the time to say, no, we don't want this slavery anymore. We don't want this terrorism. The people of the world have agreed, have come to the decision that we're not going to tolerate this anymore. And clearly, if we can get to that place and achieve that goal, then I think the scam will collapse in the same moment. and I look forward to that event and a happier, more harmonious future than the last 2,000 years. And with that in mind, perhaps we can also do something constructive about this virus and, yes, arresting these damn people that have made it, because I have a feeling they also have plans to make another virus similar to it.